Basketball season is fast approaching. In this video, let's talk a little bit about what that means for basketball cards right now. Is now a time to sell? Let's explore. So if you've been watching this channel, you'll know that I'm mostly into basketball cards. You know, I have some football cards, some soccer cards, some baseball cards. Baseball's probably the one I have the second most of. But generally, a vast majority of what I collect, what I buy, what I sell is basketball cards. So with the NBA season fast approaching, you know, the preseason is already underway. Now, based on what I'm seeing in my eBay store and my COMC store, now is the time to sell, because now is the time when people are starting to pay attention to basketball again. Even if you look at YouTube channels, I don't know if it's popping up in your algorithm, but for the past couple of months, you know, the YouTube channels I would watch about NBA content, they don't even pop up in my algorithm much. I think they're probably still making some content, but I haven't been watching it, so it hasn't even popped up in my algorithm. But now, suddenly, it is all over the place. And I can also see on my COMC store, over the past couple of months, the only cards I'm selling are ones that maybe I put up for auction here and there. I don't do that often, but every once in a while. And then a few cards will sell here and there. But suddenly, recently, my basketball cards are flying like hotcakes. On COMC, I'm selling several additional cards every day, oftentimes without people making an offer. You know, normally outside of the basketball season, I get a lot of offers at times on the basketball cards, but kind of lowball offers. Right now, it's just people buying what I have, just buying. So it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on. But I've also noticed that there's a certain type of card that does better in the preseason than others. This isn't necessarily the time where, you know, those Michael Jordan cards are going to sell better than others. They might be. Actually, I think there is some evidence that some certain kinds of Michael Jordan cards are doing better than normal, or Kobe Bryant, or some of these kinds of guys. But that's not necessarily attached to the fact that it's the beginning of the basketball season. Those guys have a different, those Hall of Fame types have a different kind of rhythm, a different pattern when it comes to card sales. But for players who there's a lot of potential hype around, players who are on teams or in situations where there's a thought that player is going to become a media darling of sorts this year, or kind of have a big spark off year. Those are the types of players that are selling well. My Luka Doncic cards, for example, just suddenly, like, they're all selling just immediately. It's not like he's done anything different. It's just a lot of people think, okay, maybe this is Luka's year for an MVP. You know, he's been on the verge of that for a long time. His cards did, you know, had a historic high of extremely high, and have come down quite a bit from that high, like a ton from that high. But I think some people are thinking maybe they've come down too far. So now suddenly my Luka Doncic cards are just selling like hotcakes. I'm not like upping the price or expecting to sell for more than what other ongoing comps are. I'm pricing it fairly, you know, but it's just the quantity of people buying right now. The number of people who are actually out there wanting to think about buying basketball cards is increasing right now. So right now, like, a lot of the cards are going. Things that have been posted for a long time are suddenly going. So a player like Luka Doncic, or a player who's on a good team, or who has been on the edge of kind of bursting out onto the scene. Tyrese Maxey, you know, he's got Paul George on his team now. You know, maybe some people are seeing the 76ers as a potential front runner for some things. Possibly, I don't know, but my Tyrese Maxey cards are going really well. So I think people are going to see him as somebody who's kind of emerged out of obscurity into kind of a more people's mindset that he's an excellent player. But that being said, I don't think now is the greatest time to sell players who are kind of established superstars but don't necessarily have the potential for massive hype to come behind them. I'm noticing, for example, Giannis Antetokounmpo cards, like his values seem to continue to drop a bit, at least from some of the rookie cards and things that I've been selling. You know, I got like a rookie patch, numbered rookie patch of his. It's not like a high-end rookie patch, but it's still a Giannis rookie patch that's going for like less than $100. So some of his cards are pretty low. Some of his other, like, you know, Pinnacle or Upper Deck SP or whatever, some of those are going for as little as $20 at times. So, you know, I think quantity, there's still a lot of those selling, but the price has come down a lot on somebody like that. And I kind of suspect that it's the similar type of thing for a player who's more well-established, doesn't need to have like this ongoing hype. A LeBron James, a Steph Curry, like, they're well-established. People know who they are. They're not going to just get a quick hype spike because they're so obviously well-known. You know, they have a more of a consistency. And I think that's probably the same with some of these Hall of Famers like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Although that being said, you know, I think some people are in a process of offloading. You know, I think in general the hobby has been learning over the past few years. There's a lot of people who have come into the hobby like around COVID time, and at first there wasn't a lot of knowledge. It was really just relying on hype cycles. But I think there is generally more knowledge in the hobby now. And I'm saying that because I think that does mean that some people are finally getting rid of some of their lower end items that they realize they don't really want. They bought at a high point and they realize they are never going to get to anything like that. I think a lot of people have sold off those kinds of cards over the past year or so. And maybe are putting money into cards like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, more established cards. If you watch the Cajun Cardboard YouTube channel, he talks a lot about basketball cards, and he's especially talking about Michael Jordan cards. And his spaces that he's seeing a lot of uptick in interest in Michael Jordan cards. It's specifically on the Fanatics Live or Fanatics auction website, which I don't know if that's going to be sustainable across all marketplaces. I've talked about in other videos before how sometimes when there's a new marketplace that has a lot of money behind it, like Fanatics does, there's a moment where there can be a hype around it and a lot more eyeballs on different auctions that happen in those spaces. So I don't know if that's necessarily a sustainable space. Just like I've said that before with the ComC's live auctions that they do on eBay. When it first started, the prices were ridiculous. But then once people kind of knew what it was, there was other competition in that space. You didn't have as many eyeballs on it. And then suddenly, the sales became more close to normal comps, or even less than that. But I think that could potentially happen in a place like Fanatics Marketplace as well. So I don't know enough about it over there. I don't know enough about like what Cajun Cardboard has been seeing to really have any definite opinion about it. But it's just something that I also am weary about when I see prices increasing in new marketplaces specifically. Is it because of the cards, or is it because of this unique moment in this new marketplace? But that being said, Michael Jordan cards are always going to be a safer type of. Their floor is still very high, so you don't have to worry so much about a Michael Jordan card or a Kobe Bryant card. So essentially, I would say, if I was to summarize like what types of cards you should be aiming to sell for basketball right now, to list them if you don't have them listed, are almost like prospect cards. There's a certain mindset of buyers who are buying in the preseason, and it's more about prospecting than anything else. Of course, we know in baseball, prospecting is a major hobby in itself. Buying cards of players who are just recently graduated from like high school and are in the minor leagues and may never even see a Major League Baseball field, and their cards can go for a ton of money. And it's because a lot of people enjoy the process of prospecting. It's a game. It's a gamble. It can definitely be a gamble, but it's a fun game for a lot of people. And in basketball, you don't have that. You don't have college. I mean, I guess you do have college cards, but it's not really much of a thing in the hobby. But what you do have is the period of time that's a couple of weeks before a season starts, where suddenly the beginning thoughts of like who's going to have the breakout season, who's going to be hyped up in the media, like those are starting to get into people's minds right now. And so this is the moment, like a very short moment of prospecting for this year. Once the season starts and things start to establish themselves, then almost no matter what, the prices are going to even out, unless there's a player who really just exceeds expectations extremely. A lot of other times a player like Luka Doncic, like right now, could be the moment when the season gets into the grind of its season and you have, 82 game season and you're in game 30, you're in game 40. Luka could be doing amazing, but his cards aren't necessarily going to have the quantity of sales just because people, it's just the norm at that point, unless there's somebody who's really going above the norm. And Luka's norm is pretty amazing, so people just get used to it. If he's scoring 30 points a game and getting a triple double most of the time or very frequently, and his team is doing pretty decently, I don't think they're going to be like running away with the number 1 seed, but they'll probably be pretty good. They'll probably be like a 3 seed or something. But there's going to be a certain normalcy that will be in that space. And Luka cards will probably, if he does great, they'll probably do fine. But right now is the moment when there's going to be a lot more quantity. There's not a lot of us that are like following the season closely throughout the entire 82 game stretch. I think a lot of basketball fans, they are in that at the beginning, seeing how things are going, and then they kind of lose interest, drift away for the middle part of the season quite a bit, and then kind of drift back in when it gets close to the end. I think the NBA recognizes that. I think that's why they even created something like the in-season tournament. Not that I think it's actually working to do that. It's a little something extra that people who are paying attention might, pay a little bit of attention to it, just because it's something that's happening during the time when there's not a lot of other things that are particularly interesting going on. But I don't think it's doing much in general. But so I think the NBA recognizes it. I think there's a reason why the All-Star Weekend aims to be this kind of like whole event and like try to get a lot of people there and get celebrities on it and have all these kind of like experiences that kind of like, wait, we're here, come draw your attention, I don't necessarily think that's working too well either, but I think these are efforts that they make because they realize that in that long grind of a season, there's this period in the middle where people don't pay attention. But right now is not that time. Right now is the time when people are just beginning to pay attention. And if they haven't been paying attention to basketball cards over the past few months, they might not know trends. They might not know what cards have gone up, what cards have gone down. So now's a pretty good time. Like as long as you have it there, like it's available and it's like the best price on eBay or best price on COMC, you're likely to be the one who would end up selling that. So now's a good time. Now's a good time to sell your basketball cards. I'm posting every day these days, as much as I can, at least when I have time. Or what I actually normally do is have one block of time where I take front and back pictures of a whole bunch of cards, and then gradually, just have 5 new ones posted on eBay every day. Sometimes if I have more time, I'll sit down and make I'll put up like 20, but over the next 4 days or 5 days or something like that. That way, I have something that's releasing onto eBay almost every day, which I think does help the algorithm. And now's also probably a good time over on COMC. Maybe go and look at your pricing on your basketball cards, maybe reprice them if other cheaper versions of the cards have made their way onto the platform. Now's maybe a good time to go on there and put your card as the lowest or second lowest kind of card. Lowest makes a cent. Sometimes the second lowest does okay too, especially if you take offers. Sometimes people will, I know this is what I do, I'll put the first, like if there's a card I want, I'll put the first 3 or 4 into my cart, and then I'll go make an offer on those 3 or 4 if they're all relatively close to each other on sale price, and I'll go make an offer and see which one. Some of them don't accept offers at all, and then I'll just erase it from my cart, and some other ones will accept offers and I'll try to get it a little bit lower. I think a lot of people do that, so I don't think it's necessary that you're always the first listing on COMC, but it helps if you're within the first 2 or 3 and that you're close to the price of the first listing. If you can be the first, if you can be the cheapest one, wonderful. Sometimes the other thing I'll do is if I know, like this just happened with what was that card? I bought on COMC a really good price. It was a baseball prospect. Oh gosh, I can't even remember who it was at this point. It's somebody who's in the minor leagues, who's doing pretty well, and still has these really cheap Bowman First autos for like $5 or $6, something like that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take a flyer, $5 or $6. I do this every once in a while with baseball prospecting. I enjoy baseball prospecting a little bit, not too much. I'm not knowledgeable enough to do too much with it, but I like to occasionally like try to do a little research and find some players who are kind of flying under the radar, who could potentially be good, and that have Bowman First auto cards that are under $10. And every once in a while, I'll buy one of these players. So I did that with a player a couple of weeks ago, and I bought a card for like $5. Yeah, $5. I put it in an offer. I think it was on sale for like $9, and I put in an offer for $5, and it was accepted. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And I looked on the list, and the next 2 were like a $10 offer and an $11 offer, something like that. Remember, I just bought this for $5. And then the third one was like a $25 or something. There's a big gap after the second one to the third one. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to price this as the cheapest one. I think this player could do really well. I'm going to price this as the third cheapest one. So I put it back up for sale for like $23, $24, something like that. It was the third price. It was still quite a bit of a gap between the second and the third, but I did that on purpose because I was thinking, okay, if this guy does do really well, those first 2 cards are going to sell quickly, and then I'll be the cheapest on there. And if he does do really well, my price is still going to be a reasonable price for a player who's doing well and the Bowman First auto card. So it's like, okay, if I can turn my $5 into $23, wonderful. If I can't, then this is the game that you play with Bowman prospecting. And this is sometimes the game you play with just prospecting, the mindset of prospecting in any sport, in basketball or any sport. So that's one of the reasons sometimes I won't aim to be the cheapest on the market if I think those other cards will go quickly and then mine will be there. So anyway, that's a number of things, but the main reason I wanted to make this video is mostly just a public service announcement. If you want to sell basketball cards, right now is a really good time to get them posted into whatever marketplace you like to use. And now is the time right now. So good luck. See you in the next one. Peace.